High school can be rough, but nothing prepared me for the day two girls tried to gaslight me, steal my food, and act like I was the crazy one. I cooked that meal with my own hands, only for them to laugh in my face and literally snatch it off my desk. But what they didn't expect was that I wasn't going to roll over. I got even, and while it cost me a suspension, it was worth every second. Let me walk you through the wildest showdown I ever had in school, and how I made sure they never forgot me. Back when I was in high school, cooking class was my escape. While other students dreaded math quizzes or crammed for history tests, I looked forward to tying on that apron and stepping into the kitchen. There was something oddly peaceful about it. The hiss of oil in a hot pan, the smell of garlic toasting, the rhythm of chopping vegetables. It was the one place in school where I felt in control. I wasn't the quiet kid or just another face in the hallway. I was the guy who could make a damn good garlic bread from scratch. And people knew it. Every week we tried something new. One day it was a hearty vegetable soup. The next day it might be a pan of warm brownies with the perfect crackly top. We even did themed days: Mexican cuisine, Italian comfort food, Southern BBQ, you name it. I didn't just enjoy it. I excelled at it. My teacher noticed it too. She'd compliment my seasoning choices or how I plated dishes like I actually cared, because I did. So on this particular day, we were working on something I was excited about, a creamy chicken Alfredo pasta with roasted vegetables and homemade garlic knots. I'd spent the entire period prepping everything to perfection. The sauce was velvety and rich, the veggies had just the right char, and the garlic knots? Golden, fluffy, brushed with butter, and sprinkled with fresh parsley. I was proud, genuinely proud of what I'd made. But time slipped away from me. Between prepping the chicken, waiting for the knots to finish baking, and cleaning up, the bell rang before I could fully finish. Our teacher told me I could pick up my dish later in the day, since she'd keep it sealed and set aside. I wasn't worried. This had happened to other students before, and it was never a big deal. Fast forward a few periods later, and I had some time between classes. I swung by the kitchen, grabbed my plate, still warm, plastic wrapped tight, and headed to my next class. I figured I'd finish the last bite or two during a free moment and show a friend what I'd made. After all, this wasn't just food. This was something I worked hard on, something I was proud of. The moment I walked into that classroom with the plate in hand, I felt like I had a spotlight on me. There were only two girls already in the room, scrolling through their phones, waiting for class to start. As soon as I sat down and set the plate on my desk, one of them looked up. "Where'd you get that?" she asked. "I made it in cooking class," I said casually. She tilted her head and laughed, nudging her friend. "No, you didn't." I looked up, thinking she was joking. "Yeah, I did," she giggled. "No, you didn't. Seriously, who made that?" "I just told you. Me, I made it." But it didn't stop there. They kept going, asking the same question over and over, like I hadn't already answered them 3 times. "You made this? Come on, you're joking. Be serious." Who really made it? It was like they decided it was impossible that I, of all people, could have cooked something that looked and smelled this good. It wasn't just disbelief. It was mockery. They weren't asking because they were curious. They were laughing, trying to poke holes in my story, like it was some kind of joke. I remember sitting there, forcing a smile, trying to brush it off. I told myself they were just being annoying. Just some girls trying to stir the pot. But in the back of my mind, something felt off. This wasn't normal teasing. This felt like they were setting something up, and I had no idea what was coming next. Little did I know, that plate of food would be the spark that lit the fuse. The 2 girls in that classroom weren't exactly strangers, but we weren't friends either. Let us just say they were the type of classmates who always had something to say, loud, opinionated, and never short on sarcasm. They'd sit in the back corner, like it was their throne, phones out, whispering jokes and side eyes to each other, like they were the stars of some high school comedy, and everyone else was just background noise. So when I walked in with my plate of food, they locked onto me instantly. It wasn't subtle. One of them, let's call her Amber, turned to me with a smirk so wide it was practically painted on. She leaned over and asked, "Where'd you get that?" I told her straight up, "From my cooking class." Her friend, we'll call her Tina, let out this little laugh, the kind that says, "Yeah, right." "Who made it?" she asked, already giggling before I answered. "I did," I said, cool and calm. "I made it." Amber raised her eyebrows and tilted her head like she'd just caught me in a lie. "No, you didn't," she said, smiling. "I did," I repeated, not even trying to argue. "Made it in class." Tina chimed in again, her voice all high-pitched and fake sweet. "Come on, seriously? Who actually made it? Your mom?" At this point, I was more confused than offended. I mean, it's high school. People bring weird stuff to class all the time. Why was this plate of pasta and garlic knots suddenly a court case? I literally made it. In cooking class. "Ask anyone in that class if you want," I said. But that just made them laugh harder. Amber leaned back in her seat, shaking her head. "Nah, you didn't. No way." And that's when the gaslighting really kicked in. They kept repeating it. "No, you didn't. No, you didn't." Over and over. Like if they said it enough times, it would just become true. And the way they said, it wasn't just disbelief. It was this mocking, taunting tone, like they were daring me to argue harder so they could keep laughing. It felt like being caught in a loop. No matter how many times I told them, no matter how calm or firm I was, they acted like I was making it all up. And not just that, like I was pathetic for even pretending I cooked something that good. The worst part? They knew I was in cooking class. We'd had conversations before where I mentioned it. They'd seen other students bring in leftovers from that class. But suddenly, when I did it, it was a joke. Suddenly, I wasn't capable, not believable, not even worth taking seriously. Their laughter got under my skin. It wasn't loud or obnoxious. It was worse. It was quiet, controlled, like they were trying to act unbothered, but still smirking at each other, like they were the smartest people in the room. Like this was just another way for them to flex power, to let me know they were the cool ones, and I was just some random kid with a plate of food no one believed I made. I tried to focus on my work, tried to ignore the whispers, but it was like they wouldn't let it go. Every minute or two, "You sure you made that? Looks a little too good. Bet it came from Olive Garden." And again, "No, you didn't. Stop lying." That last part, the way they just said it flat out, like a command, really stuck with me. Stop lying. As if I owed them some explanation. As if they got to decide what my reality was. I sat there, jaw clenched, eyes locked on my paper, trying not to give them the reaction they clearly wanted. But in the back of my mind, I felt something boiling. Not rage yet, not full-on fury, but something. Like a storm cloud rolling in, quiet at first, but definitely coming. Because the more they laughed, the more I realized this wasn't about food. This was about control. This was about making me small, making me question myself, making me feel like I had to prove something to them. They thought it was all a joke. They thought they could play games, and I'd just take it. But they were about to find out I wasn't the one. I was trying my best to ignore them. Head down, pen in hand, pretending to do my schoolwork, but my ears were still ringing with every "no, you didn't-y," and every fake laugh they threw my way. My stomach was starting to growl. I hadn't even taken a single bite of my food yet. That plate was sitting on the corner of my desk, sealed up neatly in plastic wrap, still warm from the kitchen, just waiting for me. And then it happened. No warning, no words, just movement. Amber stood up from her seat, and walked toward me like it was the most natural thing in the world. I barely registered what she was doing until she was already there, standing over my desk. And then she reached out and grabbed the plate, like she owned it. She didn't even look at me, didn't ask, didn't say, "Can I have some?" Or, "Is this yours?" She just casually took hold of my food and turned to walk away, as if this wasn't my meal, something I made with my own hands, something I was proud of. I froze for half a second. My brain didn't catch up to what my eyes were seeing. And then instinct kicked in. I reached out and grabbed her by the arm. Not hard, just enough to stop her in her tracks. "What the hell are you doing?" I asked, sharp and low. She turned slowly, like I was the one being unreasonable. Her eyes went wide, and she gave me this look, like I'd just insulted her entire family. "Let go of me," she said, voice icy. "No," I shot back. "Let go of my food." She yanked slightly, trying to pull away, but I didn't budge. "I said let go," she snapped again, louder this time, her tone shifting from smug to pissed. Tina heard the commotion and looked up from her seat. "What are you doing?" She shouted at me. "Let go of her." I tightened my grip. "She's stealing my food. Tell her to let go." Tina stood up now, voice raised. "You can't just grab her like that. That's assault." I laughed, not because it was funny, but because of how completely backward this whole thing was. She walks over, takes something off my desk without asking, and I'm the one getting yelled at for defending it? Amber twisted again, trying to free herself. "You're hurting me," she said, putting on this dramatic little whine that was clearly for show. "Get off me." I looked her dead in the eye. "Put the food down." She glared at me, and for a split second, I could see the panic starting to creep in behind her tough girl act. She wasn't expecting resistance. She thought she could just take what she wanted, and I'd let it slide. But now she was stuck in a standoff, and she was losing. Tina came closer, her voice now full volume. "Let her go, or I'm calling the principal." Amber gave one final pull, and I finally let go of her arm, mostly because I didn't want to make it worse than it already was. She stumbled back slightly, still holding my plate, and without a word, turned and stormed back to her desk. I sat there stunned for a second, processing what had just happened. That was mine. That food. I made it. I put the time in, followed every step, poured effort into making it perfect. And she just took it, like it was nothing. And then I saw her and Tina peel the plastic wrap off. I could smell the garlic. I could hear them giggle again, like they'd just won. They set the plate down between them and started eating. Like savages. No shame. No hesitation. Just hands picking at my garlic knots, fork digging into the pasta, sauce smeared on the corner of Tina's mouth as she scrolled through her phone with the other hand. Like I wasn't even there. Like I didn't matter. I stood up, walked over to them, and asked one last time, "Get it back." Amber didn't even look at me. "Shut up. Go away." Tina joined in, laughing. "You're seriously still talking about this?" And that was it. That was the moment I stopped playing nice. It was one thing for them to laugh at me. One thing to say, I didn't make the food. One thing to treat me like I was invisible. But the moment they peeled that plastic off and started eating like they hadn't just committed full-on theft in the middle of a classroom, that's when I realized something snapped inside me. They were sitting side by side now, my plate between them on the desk, like it belonged to them. Amber was twirling the pasta with a fork she must have had in her bag, blowing on it casually before taking a bite. Tina, without a care in the world, picked up one of the garlic knots with her bare hand, took a bite, and immediately smiled. "This is actually good," she said, laughing. Amber nodded, still chewing. "Told you it looked like Olive Garden." I stood there, just watching, The plastic wrap sat crumpled off to the side. Bits of roasted vegetables were already being pushed around the plate, and the sauce, my sauce, was smeared across the edge like it was nothing. They were eating my work, something I'd made with pride, and they were doing it like they were scrolling through TikTok at lunch. Phones in one hand, fork and food in the other. I looked around the room. A few other students were trickling in now, but no one was paying attention. The teacher wasn't there yet. No one was going to step in. No one even realized what had happened. And that's when the helplessness hit me. This wasn't just about food anymore. This was about disrespect. About being dismissed so casually, like I didn't matter. Like they could take what was mine, laugh in my face, and walk away clean. I thought back to all the effort I'd put into that meal. The prep, the patience, the little touches I added to make it perfect. This wasn't just a plate of food. This was mine. And seeing it being torn apart by two people who couldn't even give me the decency of acknowledging that. It felt like watching someone rip up something you spent hours building by hand. And they didn't care. That smugness, it was all over their faces. Amber chewing with her mouth slightly open, still texting with her thumb. Tina smirking every time she took another bite, not even bothering to look at me. I asked one more time, just to give them a final out. Give it back. They didn't even pause. Tina scoffed. It's already half gone. What are you going to do? Cry about it? Amber chuckled, licking sauce off her thumb, like she'd just finished her own masterpiece. You shouldn't he have left it out if he didn't want someone to take it. And that was it. I didn't yell. I didn't curse. I didn't threaten. I just said, all right. And I snatched the plate back. Amber jumped like she didn't expect me to actually do something. Tina reached out to grab it back, but I was faster. I pulled it close to me, took one look at what was left, their fingerprints on the garlic knots, pasta strands hanging off the edge, sauce smeared across the top, and I knew I wasn't eating it. Not anymore. I ripped the rest of the plastic off, walked straight to the classroom trash bin, and dumped it. Just like that. Food. Gone. Their faces. Priceless. Amber stood up like she was about to argue, but she didn't say anything. Tina made this exaggerated wow sound, like I was the one being dramatic. But I didn't even give them a chance to process it. I picked up the empty plate, walked out the door without a word, and made my way back to the cooking classroom. Returned the dish. Calmly, quietly. The hallway gave me a second to breathe. My hands were shaking, not from fear, but for rage. The kind of rage that sits in your chest like a rock, not explosive. Not loud, just heavy. I didn't know exactly what I was going to do next, but I knew this wasn't over. They thought they could humiliate me. They thought they could cross the line and get away with it because no one was watching. But they were wrong. They might have had the laughs. They might have had the power in the moment. But I had the last move, and I was already planning it. There are certain moments in life when something just clicks, not in a good way, not like a light bulb of inspiration. More like the final click before a time bomb goes off. Dumping my ruined plate of food into that trash should have been the end. It should have been enough, but it wasn't. Not by a long shot. I returned the plate to my cooking teacher with a polite, thanks again, pretending everything was fine. On the outside, I looked calm, but inside, I was boiling. My chest was tight, jaw locked, fists clenched so hard I could feel my nails digging into my palms. I wasn't mad about the food anymore. I wasn't even mad about the mockery or the disbelief. I was mad about the disrespect, the utter lack of consequences, the way they just got away with it, like I didn't matter, like I could be walked over, laughed at, robbed in broad daylight, and nobody would do a thing. By the time I walked back into the classroom, I'd made my decision. The room had filled up more now, more students. The teacher had finally arrived and was settling in at their desk. But the girls? Amber and Tina? Still sitting there, same spot, same smug energy, like the world revolved around them. Amber was back on her phone, texting. Tina had her AirPods in, scrolling through her laptop screen. And neither of them looked the slightest bit sorry. If anything, they looked proud. I sat down at my desk and just watched them for a minute. Not glaring, not fuming, just observing, matching their energy. Calm, chill, unbothered. They didn't even acknowledge me. And that's when I stood up again. No words, no announcement. Just walked straight to their desk. Amber noticed me first, lowering her phone slightly with a tired "what now" expression. Tina glanced up a second later, confused, maybe even a little annoyed. I didn't hesitate. I leaned in, looked Amber straight in the eye, and spit right in her face. Dead center, her jaw, her whole body recoiled. She let out this sharp, disgusted yelp, like I'd just splashed acid on her. What the? Before she could even wipe it off, I turned to Tina and did the same. Spat right in her face. She gasped like she couldn't believe what just happened. Her chair skidded back a few inches. Are you crazy? That's when the classroom exploded. Amber was shrieking. Tina was yelling something about how disgusting I was. Desks were screeching as people turned around to see what the hell just happened. The teacher shouted my name, but I didn't even look. I calmly turned around, walked back to my desk, sat down, pulled out my notebook, and started working on the assignment. Like nothing happened. Like I hadn't just delivered the most savage checkmate of my entire high school career. I could hear them behind me, still yelling, still cussing me out. Amber was freaking out about bodily fluids and getting tested for something. Tina threatened to get her dad involved. I didn't care, not even a little. Because for once, they were the ones feeling powerless. They were the ones humiliated. They were the ones being laughed at. They stormed out of the room to go report me to the principal's office, practically tripping over each other in their rush. And as they left, I just sat there, pen in hand, silent, focused, like they had never existed. I wasn't stupid. I knew there would be consequences. I knew spitting in someone's face was crossing a serious line. But that moment, that exact second where both of them realized they weren't untouchable, that someone would stand up to them, even if it meant burning a little with the fire, totally worth it. Because sometimes, when people push you far enough, when they stomp on your pride and laugh while they do it, you don't give them a polite warning. You give them something they'll never forget. I didn't get called to the office. I escorted myself. After the spit heard round the classroom, it didn't take long before Amber and Tina ran out like they were fleeing a crime scene, howling about how I was a disgusting freak and unhinged. I knew where they were going, and I wasn't about to pretend like this was over. So I packed up my stuff and walked down the hallway, cool as ice. The front office secretary looked surprised to see me walk in without being summoned. Here to speak with the principal, I said flatly. Ooh, okay. She be with you in a moment. 5 minutes later, we were all seated in her office, me in one chair, Amber and Tina across from me like two members of a very petty tribunal. The principal, a middle-aged woman with a carefully rehearsed, stern but understanding look, sat behind her desk, flipping through a file that I was pretty sure was mine. Amber was already dabbing at her face with a tissue, acting like I'd spat fire instead of saliva. Tina, arms crossed, was scowling like she was personally victimized by the truth. The principal looked at me, then at them, then back at me again. So, she said slowly, this is a serious matter. No kidding. She started by addressing the girls. Amber, Tina, I understand you took something off another student's desk. Is that true? Amber hesitated for a moment, then nodded slightly. We were just messing around. It wasn't like a big deal or anything. Tina added, Yeah, we didn't steal it. We were just playing. Playing. I bit my tongue hard enough to taste blood. The principal nodded and said in that performative tone adults use when they're not really angry, just pretending to be. Regardless, that behavior isn't appropriate. I'm going to give both of you a warning. Don't touch other people's things. Understood? Both girls nodded like kids caught passing notes. Then she turned to me. Her face hardened. But as for you, this is something else entirely. I sat up straight, bracing for it. Spitting on another student is completely unacceptable. That's a health violation and an act of aggression. And grabbing someone by the arm? That's a physical confrontation. You're suspended. 2 days. I didn't flinch. I just nodded once. Figured. She kept going. You should have come to me. Reported it. Told the teacher. You don't get to take justice into your own hands. At that point, I couldn't help it. I laughed. Not loud, just enough for her to hear the disbelief. Let me get this straight, I said, leaning forward. They harass me, mock me, steal my food, eat it in front of me. I ask for it back multiple times. I do everything short of filing a formal complaint while it's happening. And they get a warning. The principal stayed quiet, probably waiting for me to calm down. But I defend my property, and suddenly I'm the one with the problem? You grabbed her, she said, like she was pointing out a murder weapon. That alone is enough to cause distress. You need to understand that, for a young woman, being grabbed can be traumatizing. That's when I lost it. Not yelling, not angry, just razor-sharp cold. If she's so worried about being traumatized, maybe she shouldn't go around stealing other people as things like there aren't consequences. The room went silent. Amber's face turned beet red. Tina blinked hard, like she couldn't believe I just said that. The principal leaned back, hands clasped tightly. That's not the point, she said, but her voice was less certain now. No, I shot back. It's exactly the point. Actions have consequences. You don't get to poke the bear and then cry when it bites. If you want to protect students, start by teaching them that. Then I looked her dead in the eye and said it. Or do you seriously expect me to believe that the solution to theft is sitting quietly and hoping for justice? Are you retarded? Her face snapped up like I'd slapped her. Excuse me? I'm just trying to understand your logic, I said coolly. Because from where I'm sitting, it sounds like you're punishing the reaction, not the action. That's when the suspension went from 2 days to 4. She wrapped it up quickly after that. Told the girls they were free to go. Gave me the paperwork to sign. Said I'd be sent home immediately. And you know what? Fine. I took the hit. Sat in that chair with my head held high while Amber and Tina walked out, pretending to be victims. I didn't care. Because I knew, and they knew, they weren't going to mess with me again. I may have left with a suspension, but I also left with my dignity. And that was a trade I was more than willing to make. In the end, I took the hit, 4-day suspension. But those girls never forgot me, and they never tried that stunt again. I stood up for myself, and yeah, maybe I crossed a line. But some lines need crossing when you're treated like a joke. If I had to go back and do it all over again, I'd still grab that plate. I'd still dump it in the trash. And I'd definitely still spit. Sometimes the only way to deal with bullies is to leave a mark they'll never forget. Like and subscribe for more real stories with real fire.